Manipulation is invisible. That's what makes it deadly. Every day people smile at you, offer you favors, create urgency, build social pressure, and you comply. Not because you chose to, because your brain was triggered, like a switch being flipped, and you never even felt it happen. In this video, I'm going to summarize one of the most important books ever written on human behavior. Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, by Robert Cialdini, a social psychologist who spent years undercover, working inside car dealerships, fundraising organizations, and advertising agencies, just to understand one thing: how do people get other people to say yes? What he discovered wasn't just interesting, it was unsettling, because the weapons he found aren't used by criminals or con artists alone. They're used by companies, governments, employers, and the people closest to you, every single day. If you want a complete breakdown of all 6 weapons with real-world defense strategies, grab the free blueprint in the description. I've put together a step-by-step guide so you can spot these tactics the moment they appear. There's a lot to cover, so let's get started. Part 1. Why your brain is built to be manipulated. Before we get into the 6 weapons, you need to understand something fundamental. Your brain is lazy, not as an insult, as a biological fact. Every single day, your mind processes millions of inputs, sights, sounds, decisions, social cues. If your brain had to consciously analyze every single one, you would collapse before noon. So, evolution built a shortcut system, a set of automatic responses that fire without thinking. When you see a trigger, your brain executes a pre-programmed behavior, fast, efficient, unconscious. Cialdini calls these fixed action patterns, and in the animal kingdom, they're obvious. A mother turkey will nurture and protect anything that makes the cheep, cheep sound of her chicks. Even a stuffed polecat, her natural enemy, will be cradled and mothered if it emits that sound. Remove the sound, and she attacks it. The behavior isn't driven by thought, it's driven by a trigger. Humans are no different. We have our own triggers, and Cialdini spent his career mapping them. The terrifying part is this: these triggers evolved to help us. They're accurate most of the time. But in a world engineered to exploit them, they become weapons turned against us. Because anyone who knows the trigger can pull it. And once it's pulled, you respond automatically, without realizing a decision was even made. That's the foundation of influence, not logic, not argument, triggers. Now let's look at the 6 weapons. Part 2, the 6 weapons of influence. Weapon 1, reciprocity. In 1974, a man named Philip Kuntz conducted a simple experiment. He sent Christmas cards to a random selection of complete strangers, people he had never met, never spoken to, had no connection with whatsoever. The cards came back, hundreds of them. Strangers who received his card felt compelled to send one in return. Most of them didn't even question it. They just did it. That is reciprocity, and it is the most primal weapon in the entire arsenal. The rule of reciprocity is embedded so deeply in human culture that no society on earth functions without it. When someone gives us something, we feel obligated to give back, not because we want to, because we are wired to. The feeling of debt is psychologically uncomfortable, almost physically painful, and we will do almost anything to relieve it. Cialdini traces this back to our evolutionary origins. Reciprocity is what made human civilization possible. The ability to give resources now and trust repayment later allowed humans to build alliances, trade, and cooperate across time. Societies that had strong reciprocity survived. Those that didn't collapsed. So the feeling is ancient and it's powerful. But here's where it gets dangerous. The rule of reciprocity can be triggered by gifts you never asked for. The free sample at the supermarket isn't generosity. It's a weapon. Once you take it, the rule activates. You feel obligated. And that obligation is worth far more than the cost of the sample. Studies show that people who receive a free sample buy the product at dramatically higher rates than those who simply see an advertisement, not because the product is better, because the debt must be repaid. The same principle is used by charities who send free address labels in donation envelopes, by real estate agents who offer free home valuations, by the colleague who does you a small favor before asking for a large one. And here is the most unsettling part of reciprocity. The return gift does not have to match the original. Cialdini describes an experiment where a researcher bought a subject a small can of Coca-Cola. Later, he asked the subject to buy raffle tickets. The subjects who received the Coke bought twice as many tickets as those who didn't. A 25-cent soda triggered returns worth several dollars. The sense of obligation inflated the value of the exchange. This is why the weapon is so effective. Small investments create disproportionate returns. The manipulator gives you something small, something you didn't ask for, and then makes a large request. And your brain, desperate to balance the ledger, says yes. But there is a second layer. Reciprocity can be triggered not just by gifts, but by concessions. Cialdini calls this the rejection then retreat technique, and it works like this. Someone makes a large request they know you'll refuse. You say no. Then they make a smaller request, which was their actual goal all along, and you say yes. Not because the smaller request is reasonable, but because they conceded. They gave something, and now you feel the pressure to give something back. Cialdini tested this himself. Researchers asked college students to volunteer as unpaid counselors for juvenile delinquents for 2 hours a week over 2 years. Almost everyone refused. Then they made a smaller ask. Would you take a group of juveniles to the zoo for one afternoon? 50% said yes. When the same zoo request was made without the prior large request, only 17% agreed. The concession created obligation, and obligation created compliance. So how do you defend yourself? The key is to separate the gift from the obligation. When someone gives you something, you are allowed to receive it as what it is. If the gift turns out to be a manipulation tool, if a favor is followed immediately by a request, mentally redefine it. It wasn't a gift. It was a sales tactic. Once you see it as that, the obligation dissolves. You owe nothing to a sales strategy. Receive the gift, enjoy the sample, and make your decision based entirely on whether you actually want what's being offered. Weapon 2, commitment and consistency. In the 1960s, a pair of researchers knocked on doors in a residential neighborhood in California. They asked homeowners to put a large, ugly sign in their front yards that read, "Drive carefully." Most people refused. The sign was enormous. It would ruin the appearance of the neighborhood. Only 17% agreed, but in a nearby neighborhood, the compliance rate was 76%. The difference? 2 weeks earlier, a different researcher had visited those homes and asked residents to display a small 3-inch sign that said, "Be a safe driver." Almost everyone agreed. It was tiny, harmless, easy. But that small act of commitment changed everything. Once people had defined themselves as supporters of safe driving, they felt compelled to behave consistently with that identity. And when the large sign request came, refusing it would have meant contradicting who they believed themselves to be. This is the weapon of commitment and consistency, and it is one of the most quietly devastating forces in human psychology. The need for consistency is not trivial. It sits at the core of how we construct identity. Once we have made a choice, taken a position, or performed an action, we encounter enormous personal and social pressure to behave in ways that align with that commitment. To do otherwise is to appear unstable, unreliable, irrational, and the brain will go to extraordinary lengths to avoid that label, even if it means making objectively bad decisions. Cialdini illustrates this with the toy industry. Companies like Mattel discovered a seasonal manipulation that perfectly exploits this principle. They would heavily advertise a specific toy before Christmas, creating intense desire in children who then begged their parents for it. But they would deliberately undersupply the toy in stores. Parents would buy replacement gifts, and then after the holidays, the toy would reappear on shelves. Parents who had promised the toy and felt committed to that promise would then buy it again. Sales doubled, not because the toy was popular, because commitment had been activated. The foot in the door technique works the same way. Get a small yes, then escalate. The person is no longer just agreeing to a request. They're acting in accordance with who they are. And identity is almost impossible to argue with. What makes commitment especially powerful is that it changes self-perception. It's not just that you feel obligated to stay consistent. You actually begin to believe things about yourself based on what you've done. Social scientists call this internalization. The commitment starts as an external behavior and becomes an internal belief. You sign a petition once, and you start to see yourself as the kind of person who signs petitions. And now, you're far more likely to donate, to volunteer, to attend rallies, because all of those things are consistent with who you now believe you are. Written commitments are more powerful than spoken ones. Public commitments are more powerful than private ones. Active commitments, things you chose and worked for, are more powerful than passive ones. Manipulators know this. That's why they ask you to write things down, to say them out loud in front of others, to take visible action, however small. And here is the trap within the trap. Once an initial commitment is made, people will add new reasons to justify it, even if the original reason disappears. Cialdini calls this growing your own legs. A car dealership offers you a low price. You make the mental commitment to buy. Then at the last moment, the price changes due to a miscalculation. But you've already committed. Your brain has already generated reasons why this car is the right choice. And so you buy it anyway, at a higher price, because the commitment was already made and the reasons to support it have multiplied. To defend yourself, you must slow down when you feel internal pressure to remain consistent. Ask yourself, would I make this same choice today if I were starting from scratch? If the answer is no, that is a signal. Consistency is a virtue, but blind consistency in service of a past commitment you no longer believe in is not loyalty. It is a trap. Weapon 3, social proof. On the night of March 13, 1964, a woman named Kitty Genovese was attacked outside her apartment building in New York City. The attack lasted over 30 minutes, and according to initial reports, 38 witnesses watched from their windows. Not one called the police until it was too late. The world was horrified. How could 38 people do nothing? But Cialdini offers a different explanation. It wasn't that they didn't care, it was that none of them were sure what to do. And in moments of uncertainty, humans do what humans always do. They look at others to figure out the correct response. Every witness looked out the window, saw others standing still, and concluded that doing nothing must be appropriate. Each person's inaction confirmed the inaction of everyone else. Social proof created a collective paralysis. This is the weapon of social proof, and it is everywhere. The principle is simple. When people are uncertain about what to do, they look to others for guidance. The more people appear to be doing something, the more correct that thing seems. This is not irrational. In most situations, social proof is reliable. If a restaurant is full and the one next door is empty, the full one probably has better food. If everyone is running in one direction, there's probably something worth running from. Social proof is a fast, efficient heuristic, but it is mercilessly exploited. canned laughter on television sitcoms makes shows seem funnier than they are. Studies confirm that people laugh more, smile more, and rate jokes as funnier when a laugh track is present, even when they know the track is artificial. The trigger fires regardless. Nightclub owners create lines outside their venues, not because there isn't room inside, but because the line itself signals desirability. Bartenders seed their tip jars with bills at the start of the night so that incoming customers see evidence of tipping and follow suit. Advertisers say fastest growing and best selling not because these claims guarantee quality, but because they activate social proof. If everyone else is buying it, it must be worth buying. Online reviews are perhaps the most powerful modern deployment of social proof. A product with 400 reviews rated 4.2 stars will outsell a superior product with 5 reviews rated 5 stars. Not because more people have genuinely tested it, but because the volume of social validation overrides individual judgment. Social proof becomes most powerful in 2 conditions: uncertainty and similarity. When we don't know what to do, we look to others. And when those others resemble us, same age, same background, same situation, we follow them with even less resistance. This is why testimonials always feature people who look like the target audience. Why anti-smoking campaigns aimed at teenagers backfired when they showed how many teens smoked. Because they accidentally used social proof to normalize the behavior. To defend yourself, learn to identify when social proof is being manufactured. Ask who is providing the social signal and what their incentive is. Check whether the crowd behavior reflects genuine preference or manufactured consensus. And when you feel the pull to do something simply because others are doing it, pause. Ask whether you would make the same choice if you were alone with the facts. Weapon 4, authority. In 1961, a Yale psychologist named Stanley Milgram set up an experiment that would shock the world. Not metaphorically, literally. Participants were told they were assisting in a study on learning. They would ask questions to a person in another room, and when that person answered incorrectly, they were to administer an electric shock. With each wrong answer, the voltage increased. The shocks went up to 450 volts, labeled Danger Severe Shock on the panel. The person in the other room was an actor. No shocks were actually delivered, but the participants didn't know that. They heard screaming, they heard begging, they heard silence. And a man in a lab coat, an authority figure, told them to continue. 65% of participants administered the maximum 450-volt shock. Ordinary people, not sadists, not monsters. People who were simply responding to authority. Cialdini uses Milgram's work to illustrate how deeply the weapon of authority penetrates human behavior. We are socialized from birth to obey authority. Parents, teachers, employers, experts, institutions. And for good reason. Legitimate authority usually represents genuine expertise. Following the advice of a doctor or engineer is almost always superior to relying on our own uninformed judgment. But here is the critical flaw. We respond not to actual authority, but to the symbols of authority. The lab coat, the title, the uniform, the confident tone, the expensive suit. These symbols trigger automatic deference, whether or not they represent real expertise. Cialdini cites a study in which hospital nurses received phone instructions from someone claiming to be a doctor, asking them to administer a clearly excessive dose of medication. 95% of the nurses proceeded to follow the instruction, despite it being in direct violation of hospital rules and potentially lethal, before being stopped by a researcher. The caller had never been seen, had never shown credentials. The title alone was enough. Advertisers exploit this relentlessly. 9 out of 10 dentists recommend. The man in the ad wears a white coat. The voiceover speaks with authority. None of this guarantees expertise. It only signals it. And authority is easily faked. Cialdini notes that titles, clothing, and trappings can all be manufactured. Con artists understand this better than anyone. Dress the part, speak with confidence, deploy the right vocabulary, and people will follow you into decisions they would never make alone. To defend yourself, train yourself to ask 2 questions when faced with an authority. First, is this person actually an expert in the relevant area? A celebrity endorsing a financial product is not a financial expert. Second, can I trust this authority to be honest with me? Even genuine experts have incentives that may not align with yours. Question the source, verify the credentials, and never let a symbol of authority replace your own judgment. Weapon 5, liking. In the 1970s, a man named Joe Girard was recognized by the Guinness Book of World Records as the greatest car salesman in history. For 12 consecutive years, he sold more retail cars than any other human being on the planet. His secret wasn't pressure tactics. It wasn't elaborate negotiation. Every single month, he mailed a card to every one of his past customers. 12 cards a year. The message inside changed each month, but the front of the card always said the same thing. I like you. That was it. And it worked. Because Cialdini's research confirms what Girard intuited. We say yes to people we like, and we are far more likely to like someone who likes us. Liking is the most human of all the weapons, and it operates through 5 distinct mechanisms. The first is physical attractiveness. Research consistently shows that good-looking people are perceived as more talented, more intelligent, more trustworthy, and more credible. This is the halo effect applied through appearance. We don't consciously choose to trust attractive people more. It happens automatically, and it is ruthlessly exploited in advertising, sales, and politics. The second is similarity. We like people who are like us. Same background, same values, same interests, same speech patterns. Salespeople are trained to mirror body language and find common ground before making their pitch. Researchers have found that wait staff who repeat orders back to customers using their exact words receive significantly larger tips. The simple act of echoing creates a sense of sameness, and sameness creates liking. The third is familiarity. We like what we know. Repeated exposure to a person, product, or idea creates a sense of comfort that we mistake for approval. This is why advertisements repeat the same image and slogan endlessly, not to inform you, to make the brand feel familiar, and familiar feels safe, and safe feels good. The fourth is association. We like things connected to things we already like, and we dislike things connected to things we dislike. This is why companies pay enormous sums to have their products associated with beloved celebrities, sporting events, or cultural moments. The association transfers feeling. The product hasn't changed, but the emotional context around it has. And the fifth is flattery. We like people who compliment us, even when we know the compliment may not be genuine. Cialdini cites research showing that positive comments about our personality, our taste, and our intelligence increase liking for the person delivering them, even when subjects were explicitly told the flatterer was trying to manipulate them. The trigger fires anyway. The danger of liking as a weapon is precisely its warmth. It doesn't feel like manipulation. It feels like connection. It feels like being understood. And so the defenses come down. And that's when the request arrives. To defend yourself, learn to separate your feelings for a person from the merits of what they're offering. When you notice you like someone a great deal, especially in a sales or persuasion context, consciously redirect your attention away from the person and onto the proposal. Ask, would I agree to this if a stranger I felt nothing toward made the same offer? Weapon 6, scarcity. In the late 1970s, a group of researchers gave people cookies to evaluate. One group received their cookies from a jar containing 10. The other group received the same cookies from a jar containing 2. The cookies were identical, same recipe, same batch, same everything. The people with 2 cookies rated them as significantly more desirable, more attractive, and better tasting than those with tin. Nothing had changed about the cookies, only their availability. And that changed everything. Scarcity is perhaps the most viscerally powerful weapon because it bypasses rationality almost entirely. When we believe something is rare, or becoming rarer, or available to only a limited number of people, we want it more. Immediately, urgently, compulsively. Cialdini traces this to two roots. The first is purely logical. Things that are rare tend to be valuable. Diamonds, original paintings, limited edition products. Scarcity often genuinely does indicate worth. So using availability as a signal of quality makes sense most of the time. But the second root is far more primal: loss aversion. The prospect of losing access to something, of missing out, is psychologically more motivating than the prospect of gaining something of equal value. Losing hurts more than winning feels good. And scarcity turns every purchasing decision into a potential loss. This is why deadlines work. Offer expires at midnight. This is why limited quantities work. Only 3 left in stock. This is why exclusive access works. Available to members only. None of these tactics change the underlying value of what is being offered, but they transform the psychological context from a gain decision, should I get this, to a lost decision. Will I miss out on this? And lost decisions trigger urgency, anxiety, and action. Cialdini describes an experiment conducted by a beef importer. In the first condition, customers received a standard sales pitch. In the second, they were told beef supplies would be limited due to weather conditions. In the third, they were told the same weather information, but with the addition that this was exclusive, insider information not available to the general public. The third group ordered 3 times more beef than the first. The scarcity doubled the effect. The exclusive access to information about the scarcity doubled it again. 2 triggers stacked on top of each other. And scarcity has a social dimension that makes it even more explosive. Things become more desirable, not just when they are rare in absolute terms, but when we believe others want them. Competition activates something ancient in us. The awareness that another person might get what we want accelerates our desire almost beyond our ability to control it. Romeo and Juliet is Cialdini's example. Their love intensifies in direct proportion to the opposition they face. The forbidden becomes irresistible. The restricted becomes the most desired thing in the world. This is why banned books sell more copies, why prohibited substances become more appealing, why parental interference in romantic relationships so often achieves the opposite of its intended effect. To defend yourself against scarcity, you must recognize the emotional state it creates. The signature feeling of scarcity-triggered desire is urgency, a sudden compulsive need to act immediately. When you feel that surge, that sense that you must decide now, treat it as a warning signal, not a reason to act. Ask yourself whether the thing was equally desirable before you learned it was scarce. If yes, the scarcity has revealed information. If no, the scarcity has manufactured desire. And manufactured desire is not a reason to decide. It is a reason to pause. Part 3. The weapons combined. Understanding these 6 weapons individually is powerful, but Cialdini makes clear that they are most dangerous when stacked. Consider a single scenario. A charity calls you. The volunteer on the phone is warm, friendly, finds out you share the same hometown. Liking, activated. They mention they're only calling a select group of long-term supporters. Scarcity and authority, activated. They reference that most people in your community contribute at this level. Social proof, activated. They mention they sent you a small gift last month. Did you receive it? Reciprocity, activated. They ask whether you consider yourself someone who cares about this cause. Commitment, activated. And the volunteer speaks with total calm confidence. Authority, reinforced. None of these weapons, individually, would necessarily close the deal. Together, they are almost irresistible. This is how the world actually operates. Not with single triggers, but with layered combinations designed to overwhelm the deliberate analytical mind and hand the decision entirely to the automatic system. Part 4. The defense. Cialdini is careful to note that these weapons are not inherently evil. Reciprocity, consistency, social proof, authority, liking, and scarcity are all useful heuristics. They evolved because they work. They produce correct decisions the vast majority of the time. The problem is exploitation. When someone engineers a situation to trigger these responses artificially, the weapon is no longer serving you. It's serving them. So the defense is not to eliminate these responses. It's to recognize when they've been triggered artificially. When you feel obligated, ask whether the gift was genuine. When you feel locked in, ask whether you would still choose this from scratch. When you follow the crowd, ask whether the crowd is real or manufactured. When you defer to authority, ask whether the expertise is genuine and aligned. When you like someone, ask whether you're evaluating the person or the offer. When you feel urgency, ask whether the scarcity is real or constructed. Awareness is not a perfect shield. These triggers are too deep, too ancient, too fast for perfect immunity. But awareness creates a gap, a moment of pause between the trigger and the response. And in that gap, you take back your decision. Cialdini ends with a warning. As our world becomes more complex, more information saturated, more demanding of our attention, we will increasingly rely on these automatic shortcuts. The overload makes us more vulnerable, not less. And the people who understand these weapons will continue to grow more sophisticated in their use of them. The only answer is to understand them yourself. Not to become a manipulator, but to become unswindleable. Because the most powerful position in any influence dynamic is not the one pulling the trigger. It's the one who sees the trigger coming and chooses their own response.